Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen tries to make me do yoga. After that, brother lied about me cheating on my boyfriend. I got revenge. And after that, my 7-year-old nephew confronts rowdy bar patron. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to do yoga. No, please, anything but that. So please tap that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen tries to make me do yoga. Our family has Pancake Sundays, which is where our house gets together for a sit-down family breakfast with my mom's infamous pancakes. As you would expect, I'm always down for it. Love family time, love pancakes. My family is also very active and athletic, and usually does a workout or yoga in the mornings. However, I'm not a very athletic or active person, and because I hate being compared to the rest of my family, I hate feeling weak while they exercise. I usually don't work out with them. Last week, I did do yoga though, because my mom asked and it was Mother's Day. This week, my mom said I wasn't allowed pancakes unless I did yoga with them again. I said that was fine. I still wasn't going to do the yoga, but was a bit upset that she was trying to force me to do something I didn't want to do. In the morning, my sisters kept texting me for me to come to breakfast, but I didn't really want to because watching everyone else enjoy pancakes while I didn't wasn't super appealing to me. Finally, I went up because I didn't really want to miss family breakfast, only to see that my mom made my favorite crepe pancakes that she only makes for birthdays, along with fruit and whipped cream. Take note that I had told Mom that I missed her crepes a few times, but she waited until I couldn't eat them to make them. I really didn't want to watch everyone else enjoy the food while I couldn't, and was getting upset that she tried to go out of her way to punish me for not working out with her, and I didn't want to be around my family when I was getting upset like that, so I went to go downstairs. My stepdad stopped me and in front of the whole family told me off for not wanting to spend time with my family, for not contributing to the family, for my mom always having to push me to do anything. I didn't really say anything. I've been taught not to talk back to my parents, but I can't help but feel upset. I take walks with my mom and sister whenever she asks. It's only been a couple of times in the past year of lockdown that I said I didn't want to go. Whenever the lawn needs to be mowed or they need help, I'm always the one they ask. My other siblings comparatively don't help out as much, and yet I'm always the one who gets criticized. I feel ridiculous for getting so upset over something so stupid, and I don't want to face them right now because I honestly can't tell if I'm in the right or not. Also, to be clear, it's not a weight thing. I'm not overweight or super unhealthy. I just don't like working out in the mornings. Edit for info. I'm 19 and have been living with my family since lockdown started. I was in college residence before that. Edit. Thanks to everyone who commented. Honestly, I thought that it was mainly going to be me being the jerk, so I'm kind of surprised that almost everyone said I'm not the jerk. A lot of what people made me think a lot. I'm pretty used to just accepting that my parents are right and I'm in the wrong, and just trying my best to move on. Honestly, I wish I could say this means that I'm not going to take it from them anymore and finally put my foot down. But my parents are paying my college tuition while I pay living expenses. So until I have a job that lets me pay them back, I'm going to have to put up with it or else they won't support me anymore. Thanks anyway, everyone. Glad to know I'm not completely crazy for getting upset over this. Well, who do you agree with? OP or their mom? Please let us know. She should know better than to use her delicious treats to get back at people. Not cool, Karen. Not cool at all. Brother lied about me cheating on my boyfriend. I got revenge. My brother, 23 male, we're twins, is so mean to me, 23 female. But the worst thing happened 5 years ago. I got my first boyfriend when I was 18 and a senior in high school. I know we were young, but I really loved him. We had been dating for 10 months when my brother randomly decided, for literally no reason at all, to make up a story about how he caught me cheating and tell it to my boyfriend. He planned it all out, he came up with details, he made it sound real. And because he's such a scarily good liar and a master manipulator, my boyfriend believed him. No matter what I said or did to prove it wasn't true, he believed my brother over me. My brother kept up with his act the entire time and refused to admit he was lying. At one point, I thought I'd finally gotten my boyfriend to believe me, but then he broke up with me a few months later and confessed it was because he was still convinced I had cheated on him and he couldn't move past it. He said, The worst part is that you won't just tell me the truth. And not to sound dramatic, but that still haunts me. I want to cry every time I think about it, and I still miss him to this day. Also, I think it's important to note that my brother has never once apologized. He's so insanely mean that he just thinks it's funny. I even asked him once if he'd consider hitting my ex up and telling him the truth for my peace of mind, and he just laughed at me. I never got over what my brother did, and I always told myself I was gonna do the exact same thing to him one day. He's dated several girls since high school, but he had never been serious enough about any of them for me to consider tricking them. I knew I wouldn't hurt him like he hurt me if I just tricked one of his flings or something. But he finally got his first serious girlfriend last year, and after thinking about it for a long time, I decided I was gonna do it. We live in different places now, so I had to do it all online. I used a different method than he did. I contacted his girlfriend pretending to be the girl he had been cheating with. I made up an elaborate, detailed story like he did to me and even photoshopped proof and stuff. I made my story even more believable than he made his, and exactly like he did to me, I went as far as denying it even to him because I knew he might use my texts and calls to prove to his girlfriend that it isn't true. He knew I was behind it though, solely because the girl I made up doesn't exist and there's no one else that would do this, but I kept denying it. His girlfriend wholeheartedly believed me, and my brother kept calling and texting me and begging me to give it up, even though I still wouldn't admit it was me. He was manipulating me and arguing that it's different because I was younger when he did it to me and my relationship wasn't serious. But my relationship was serious, and like I said, I still miss my ex. My brother really messed me up. I have empathy though, he doesn't, and I was starting to feel bad for his girlfriend because she's innocent. I was kind of regretting everything and thinking that maybe I should tell his girlfriend the truth, for her sake, not his. But then, his girlfriend asked me a question which led to her admitting that she's been suspicious of him for a long time. So I pried a little bit and encouraged her to look through his phone. She told me she couldn't because she didn't know the passcode and he wouldn't give her access to it. I guessed a few passcodes I thought it could be and gave them to her under the guise of seeing it once, but not being sure which one I'd seen. That was kind of dumb, but I couldn't think of anything else to say and she didn't question it. She got in because it ended up being the same one he's had since 2012 when our dad got us iPhones and made us use the same passcode. Idiot. Anyway, lo and behold, it turns out my brother actually cheated on her, and my setup was the reason she found out. He's been talking to and hooking up with multiple girls for pretty much the entirety of their relationship. I'm not surprised because he's a terrible person, and cheating seems right up his alley, but I'm shocked at the same time. I literally can't believe things worked out this perfectly. It feels like a dream or something. The universe loves me. I hate to revel in his girlfriend's misery, but I was feeling guilty about her being collateral damage, so I feel like this is the best possible outcome. My lie ended up being the truth. Well, not exactly, but you know what I mean. So I didn't scar his girlfriend or leave her with permanent damage for no reason. All my interference did was speed up the process of the truth coming to light. In fact, my brother may have been able to hide his cheating forever if not for me. He probably would have just manipulated his girlfriend and/or refused to give her phone access forever. She hasn't broken up with him, and I'm honestly not sure if she will. I don't know how relevant that is, but it attests to how manipulative he is. He does people over all the time, but somehow always gets his way anyway. It's honestly infuriating and scary. Anyway, I'm still not going to admit to my brother that I'm behind it all, because there's no point. That would just get me in deeper trouble. I got a comment on my original post that said, "Deny till you die, baby," and that's exactly what I'm planning on doing. Life is crazy. What would you do if someone messaged you telling you that your boyfriend or girlfriend was cheating on you? Please let us know. Ha! I'd laugh at them. Who else would even give you the time of day, Reddit boy? My 7-year-old nephew confronts rowdy bar patron. A series of scheduling mishaps resulted in my 7-year-old nephew accompanying me to my shift today. I had agreed to babysit, I had agreed to work. I had coordinated both poorly by the time I realized it was too late to go back from either. I felt bad about my sweet little guy having to spend the afternoon in a boring restaurant when we usually do something fun together, so tried to find safe and appropriate ways for him to get involved. I lucked into finding a trainee badge at my station. I got him all set up with an apron, a pad, and a PPE and started having him take all tables orders with me. I told him we'd work as a team where he'd ask what they wanted while I wrote it down. He's still perfecting his handwriting. At first, he was frustrated, thinking I was making up work to keep him busy and he wasn't really contributing or I was babying him. So I made a big deal of saying we were short-staffed that day and he was helping me manage the restaurant and really taking a lot off my plate. The other staff backed me up on this, and then he got super excited. He was very into it, more affable, professional, and engaging than plenty of other trainees who've come through the doors. It was adorable. He was enjoying himself and it was great for my tips. Win all around. I work in a very family-friendly restaurant and most of the tables had kids themselves, so we're great with humoring him and had no problems answering repeat questions or waiting a second when he forgot his lines. But then disaster struck. I got one of those awful customers at the bar, getting hammered in the middle of the day and impossible to satisfy. He was your typical grumpy boozer. Older, tank top, no deodorant, no tip. Phone ringer turned to the loudest setting, kept trying to light up despite our explicitly clear no smoking signs, and so forth. Most people were very kind in raising concerns about their meal because they saw I had a kid with me. Regulars who I know to be the type to shout "ketchup" across the room or snap their fingers to get my attention were instead flagging me down and saying to my nephew, "Excuse me, young man, when you have a second, would you mind getting more ketchup or another glass of water or a new place setting or whatever the case?" Started thinking I should take him with me to work every day. But this bar patron was shouting, "Another!" and pounding his fist and making a scene. I had my little guy hang back while I was dealing with his patron, but the restaurant isn't huge. He could clearly see what was going on, and I could tell he was checking my interactions with this bar guy. I gave the bar patron several quiet reminders as to how he needed to conduct himself, but they did not penetrate at all, and I was becoming visibly anxious. Not only because of my nephew, but out of concern for the comfort of the other tables and bar patrons. So then it escalated to the point that we had a real problem. The man was making obnoxious comments about the service and yelling at the game we had on the TV. My nephew was not the only kid we had in the place, so this was particularly unacceptable. Every time his team did something he didn't like, he was yelling words he had no business yelling in our restaurant. I told him more than once to cool it, but the game was almost over. It seemed like he'd come in to watch it, so I figured once it wrapped up, he'd leave and I can avoid a confrontation in front of my nephew. I figured he'd be nervous with all the shouting and the words being said. So when my nephew piped up to speak the next time the bar patron made a crack about the terrible service, I was not anticipating this boy to say in a severe tone, "Buddy, cool it. You've been warned." I wasn't sure whether to laugh from nervousness of my own or from being impressed, but I tried to signal to him that I had handled it without throwing additional fuel on the fire. We had maybe 15 more minutes of peace. Then someone in the game scored, or didn't score, or something undesirable for his side, and he erupted yet again with a string of words he shouldn't have been saying. We sort of tolerate a little of that behavior after about 7 p.m., but not during the day, and I'd already tried to set him straight more than once. I was getting really harried, and we actually were short-staffed that day, so I was not merely as mentally or physically equipped to deal with it as I otherwise might have been. Before I can make up my mind as to how we'll handle the situation, my nephew charges over and goes, "All right, that's it. Settle your tab and find the door." I wanted to rush in to intervene, but I just froze. Everything was so tense, I lost my ability to speak the English language, my only language, for a few seconds. The guy started responding, making no mention of my nephew's age, instead remarking on how the service had been slow and the TV's picture quality had been lousy, and he wanted a refund. My nephew goes, "Don't like it here? Then it's a good thing you're leaving, but not before you settle up." And then he gives me this affirmative nod, like we were foxhole buddies or allies. That snapped me back to reality, and I was hurrying to get in the middle of them, but before I knew it, my 4-foot-something nephew is chesting up and practically shouting, "Are you leaving, or do I have to make a call?" And the guy was stunned into silence, both because I'll bet he was unsure of what my nephew meant by that. I know I was, but also because he probably noticed he had attracted the attention of other bar patrons who were just as upset about how this game was turning out, so eager for an excuse to get physical. Like an old guy picking on a kid, if I could feel them staring daggers through him, he certainly must have, even in his altered state. So he slapped some money on the table, the bartender didn't even bother to count it, and he stumbled off. We watched and made sure he wasn't driving. I was relieved the conflict was resolved, and the rest of the shift went off without a hitch. My nephew was even more popular in the restaurant for the remainder as well. When it all finally wrapped up, and I had a second to catch my breath and clear my head, I asked him where on earth he got all that from, and perhaps, not surprisingly, he said, "Nah, I don't know. It's how I saw the bar people on TV talk." I asked him, "Who were you fixing to call?" And he said, "Well, no one. It's what they say on TV. I figured he'd know what it meant." I was too amused and surprised and relieved, and in a rush to get him back in time for pickup to dig too much deeper. But I'm assuming by the bar guys on TV, he meant Cheers. My sister and I loved that show growing up, and I would be shocked if he's already watching Sunny in Philadelphia. But he has an older brother, so who knows? I might have to follow up on this actually. His mom was also amused, but unlike me, not surprised by the showdown. She was pleased to see her son made in tips her babysitting fee and then some. It was touch and go at a few moments there, but overall, a good and memorable shift that I just had to share. I don't work for your store. A decade ago, I worked as the resident technician at Staples. I repaired computers for our store's customers. Our uniform was khakis and a black polo with a lime green collar and company name and logo on the chest. I got off shift and headed over to Best Buy to look at DVDs. While I'm there, I spot a regular customer of mine. She was an odd duck, but very sweet and used to being treated poorly because of how she dressed, even though she was just a little old lady in Maine. Think tan mom crossed with any super gaudy golden everything. She just liked weird clothes and outrageous makeup and nails. Anyway, she knows I don't work at Best Buy, but couldn't get anyone to help her. I wasn't doing anything important, and she had bought hundreds of dollars of stuff from me over the last few months, so I started my sales questions. I like to know what people are looking for, what they intend to use the product for, and price range. Often, people insist they need one thing, but actually need something completely different, and it's easier to ask rather than to do exchanges. We go to the computer section, and I try to find an associate while helping her. We hop on a demo laptop, and I do a Best Buy search for things she might be interested in. What she wanted didn't appear to be in stock, so I switch over to the Staples site to see if we had it in stock. We did have it, and I told her I'd meet her at the store as soon as I finished buying DVDs. I said maybe 20 minutes, as my store was only a mile or so down the road from the mall. She left, and I got into line. All of a sudden, I get yanked out of line by a man I've never seen in Best Buy floor manager attire. He proceeds to drag me to another register, and I'm thinking this is a rude way to open a new lane. He pulls me behind the register and tells me to open up and start ringing up customers. I just have a stupid look on my face as I don't know what's happening. I try to say that I don't work there, but he isn't listening. A couple of people are staring at us from other lines. I say I can help if they really need it, but I don't know how to work their system, and I shouldn't be handling money since I don't work there. He gets all huffy, obviously not really listening. He punches in his code to unlock the register and walks off. I turn to look around, bewildered. A few people are laughing. The cashier right next to that lane said, "What the heck was that?" I replied that I had no clue. I asked to speak to a manager. A call went out over the speaker system, and the same person came back and yelled at me for not working. I asked for his boss. He threw a tantrum, but the cashier called the store manager on her own as they obviously saw that their floor manager was off their rocker. The GM comes over and asks what I'm doing behind a register, and I said I don't know. I was just trying to buy 2 movies. The GM said that I shouldn't be trying to check myself out, and I said I wasn't trying to. The floor manager keeps spouting off that the new hires are awful. Then it clicks for the GM. I lay out the story, including how the register was unlocked for me and how I could have just emptied the register and taken off. The GM lays into the floor manager, pointing out my uniform is a competing store with a different color scheme. The floor manager realized how stupid they had been and was told to wait in the GM's office. I got my stuff rung up and paid for at the register they had stuck me at, and I headed back to Staples. All in all, I spent an hour at Best Buy. It was a funny story to tell the lady waiting at Staples. My boss even had me log back in to ring her out and said he would log me out in an hour so I'd get paid for the time I spent making a sale in my off time. Do you remember the store called Best Buy? If so, what was the last thing you bought there? Please let us know. Oh, who needs Best Buy when you've got Amazon? Am I the jerk for threatening to terminate an employee if she doesn't surrender her pet fox? For context, I work in engineering and am a manager of 4 employees, out of 40 or so at our office. A while back, one member of our team was talking about how she was planning to get a pet fox. I didn't think much of it. I looked it up, and they're legal in our state. She apparently got the fox about a month ago and has been sharing pictures of it frequently with others, including keeping one on her desk. But we've also been noticing several problems. Firstly, when she first got the fox, she was missing from work quite often. She was leaving early, taking 3-hour lunches, and arriving late almost every day. She was aware of it and apologized, saying, "Sorry, I had to take the fox to a vet 1 hour away," or "Sorry I'm late, the fox peed on me this morning before work and I had to re-shower," but it was happening nearly every day. I talked to her about it and she was embarrassed and said that she'll do better. And to her credit, she has been doing better about that for the past couple of weeks. But then the other issue, the bigger issue now, is the smell. After she got the fox, I got a couple of complaints from others about that she smelled badly. I only noticed it at times, but it was definitely there. Most noticeably, on top of that, when she said she was late because she had to re-shower when the fox peed on her. I'm not sure if she actually showered, but it certainly didn't smell like it. But more recently, it's becoming almost constant. When she walks into the room, you can smell it. Even if she leaves her jacket on the desk when she goes out to lunch, the jacket smells like fox. And it was much worse this week than the week before. I had an uncomfortable conversation with her about it a week ago and said it was becoming a problem, and she seemed very upset and promised that she's showering right before work every day and washing her clothes frequently to make sure it's not an issue. But again, over the past week, it's gotten much worse, not better. So after talking with my supervisor for advice, on Friday I had another talk with her and told her that the issues weren't really improving despite her efforts and that something has to change. And it seems like it's impossible for her to meet attendance and hygiene requirements while caring for a pet fox. And if this doesn't change, we would have to consider firing her. This made her very upset, and she started crying and saying how heartless that was, and how I was unappreciative of everything she had done over the past 2 years, and how would I like it if someone talked about my kid like that. I do feel bad for making her that upset, but I wasn't sure what else to do. I'm wondering if I handled it correctly. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the fox owner? Please let us know. I know the struggle. I need to take at least 3 showers a day or I smell like Reddit boy over here. Am I the jerk for being mad at my wife for causing a scene at the restaurant? My wife has long-lasting issues with her mother. She hasn't spoken to her in 6 years. To be frank, I've never understood why my wife doesn't want her mother around. All I know is their relationship went south after my father-in-law divorced my mother-in-law. It was a decision they both made, so I don't get why she keeps punishing her mother like that. I was open to have meetings with my mother-in-law. I've been in contact with her for a year, and my wife knew. She said it's up to me to want to have a relationship with her mom, but I shouldn't try to make her re-establish a relationship with her. Things remained the same for months. My mother-in-law would see my wife a few times a week, but they don't talk. And I just thought that my wife and mother-in-law were stuck in this conflict and needed one meeting to at least open up to tackle this issue, especially before our son is born. I arranged for dinner at a restaurant on Mother's Day. My wife thought it was just for the 2 of us, but I kept giving her hints about the person I was expecting. My mother-in-law arrived, and next thing I knew, my wife got up from her seat and started yelling in front of everybody. I told her that her mom tried many times to reconcile, but she was just being unfair with her grudge, holding attitude, and not giving her a chance for a sincere talk. All I asked was for a sit down and to talk things out with her mom. She said she didn't want to see her, especially on this day, and thought I was doing this for her as a mom. And I was. I begged her to sit, and I'd get her mom to leave if she was bothered that much, but she didn't listen. My mother-in-law was standing behind crying while everyone was looking. My wife took her phone and purse and then left. I had mixed feelings, but I felt mostly upset things played out different than what I had in mind, since my wife has no problem with her mom speaking to me. My wife has been staying with a friend for a week. I visited her twice to talk, and every time we ended up arguing. I told her she didn't need to cause a scene at the restaurant and could have been a little bit graceful to sit with her mom at the table to talk. but she said I needed to blame myself. I asked her, didn't Mother's Day mean anything to her? All I got was a cold stare. Growing up without my mother made my life incomplete. I never had any mother figures in my life, and it's because of my father. I just think everyone should count their blessings, and she should realize it's never too late to fix the problem between her and her mom if she chooses to see how lucky she was to still have her mom around. But she kept blaming me for the scene at the restaurant and said she won't forget that day and flat out told me, "You know what's the worst thing about betrayal? It never comes from an enemy." This complicated the matter more. I thought about what went wrong, and it's clear my wife isn't willing to even try. Edit. I'm 23, male. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. It's always important to respect people's boundaries. If Reddit boy did something like this to me, he'd be in the ER. A pound of everything. This is probably close to 20 years ago when I was working in a deli in a supermarket. There were usually 2 to 5 of us working back there, as it could be relatively busy depending on the day and the time of the day. It was a pretty average day and maybe a little on the slow side, but I recall 2 ladies approaching the counter and, as I always did, put a decent smile on and asked how I could assist. The 2 ladies were middle-aged, at my best guess and recollection, and it seemed one of them was there to order and the other was possibly just providing company. The customer spoke to me very politely and gave me a list of about 6 various lunch meat and cheeses that she needed before turning back to her friend and engaging in conversation that I either don't remember or was too low volume to hear at the time. I'm not in the habit of paying attention to others' business. As it were, I'm not sure if she actually told me how much of each item she wanted, as I was repeating all 6 in my head to make sure I remembered each one. As I was placing the first on the slicer, I decided to walk back to the counter and verify just to make sure. "Apologies, was that half a pound of everything?" I asked. She only half turned back to me and muttered an affirmative with an accompanying nod and dismissive flick of her hand while her friend made a little more eye contact with me. That was enough for me, and I went back to work, cut each item one by one for the customer, and lined them up on the counter for her one by one. I finished slapping the last sticker after weighing the last item and asked if she was sure there wasn't anything else I could assist with. This is where a fairly normal interaction went a little crazy. She picks up the first one and looks at it, and slams it on the counter and picks up another to look at it. And then she started screaming at a volume that could be easily heard across the entire store. "I said I want a pound of everything." I was pretty stunned, and imagine I stood there blinking at her for a couple seconds before I was able to respond, explaining that I had been unsure and even asked her again before I started slicing. Apparently, this wasn't what she wanted to hear because she got louder and started stomping her feet, repeating over and over that she wanted a pound of everything and that I had asked her no such thing, while I kinda stood there like a deer in the headlights. The other 2 I was working with just kinda stared in shocked silence as well, having little idea about what was going on. There were no other customers, so one of them could have probably been helping me with the order in retrospect. I'm fairly fortunate it didn't last long. I made a brief eye contact with the other woman again, who tugged on the sleeve of her raving friend and told her that I had, in fact, just asked about the quantity, and that she had told me a half pound was accurate. There was an immediate change. This lady at least had the decency to be absolutely mortified by her own behavior, apologizing profusely for the entire duration that it took for me to prepare another half pound of everything she requested. It was a struggle not to laugh at her during the time it took for me to finish the order, mostly out of nervousness and slightly frazzled nerves over the ridiculousness of it all. She left politely enough, and for the next couple months, it was the running joke of the department that she wanted a pound of everything. Am I the jerk for telling my close friend she shouldn't have another baby? I'm 25, female, and my friend Pam, 24, female, has a son, 2, male, who I love dearly. Pam and I have known each other since we were 15, and we had similar dreams. We are both in a group of friends that are tightly knit. Pat is on again and off again with her baby's dad, and they had an explosive argument, so she stayed at my place for the week. I was surprised during the stay because she didn't really watch her son. He was bumping his head on the walls, playing with the toilet, and playing on the stairs. I watched him, but when I had to go to class, I handed him to Pam, and most of the time, she had let him loose again so she could be on her phone or whatever. She mentioned she wanted to have another baby with her boyfriend, and she made it seem that because she had nothing else to do, she should give her son a sibling. She asked for my opinion, and when I asked her if she wanted my honest opinion, she said yes. I told her she shouldn't because she still lives with her 85-year-old grandmother. She isn't financially stable and her relationship with her boyfriend is rocky. I told her bringing another life to this world is a huge responsibility, and she mentioned a time last year when I tried getting her to go back to school when I tried giving her my study guides for anatomy and physiology during my undergrad days. I was confused why she brought that up, and she said that I act like I'm better than everyone. I only tried encouraging her to go back to school because she admitted she was jealous that everyone else in our group of friends were achieving their goals. I assured her I was not trying to put her down, and she said that I told my other friend that I wanted to have a baby with my fiance once I finished my master's degree and passed my boards. I was like, okay. I never applied any of that to her, but it's true. I wanted to have mental and financial stability before having kids. She started to cry and insisted on leaving. I tried to get her to stay and leave in the morning when the roads were clear, but she pushed me away and left. She's telling our friends that I'm a snobby jerk. I called her and texted her that I was sorry if my opinion hurt her, and my opinion was something she didn't even have to consider because she's an adult, and she just said that I'm a cold-hearted jerk. Am I the jerk here? I've tried to talk to her about the possibility that she is experiencing depression, but she tells me to mind my own business. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Pam? Please let us know. Sometimes the truth hurts, baby mama. Please come watch this video next. You won't believe what happens. And please support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And if you'd ever like us to make a video for you, just head over to our Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.